Welcome to Getting Neighborly in Fairview, Texas, the official community podcast for the town of Fairview, hosted by the Fairview Economic Development Corporation. On every episode, we spend time getting to know our neighbors and hearing the stories that make our town a community. This is Getting Neighborly in Fairview, Texas.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Getting Neighborly with the town of Fairview. I have with me in this episode Miss Alicia Bush with the Treasured Vessels Foundation. Mm-hmm. Right? Is it foundation? Is it called Treasured Vessels Foundation?
Yeah, you know the Treasured Vessels.
Treasured Vessels. Period.
Well, it's Treasured Vessels Foundation. We had to have those three.
Right.
You know, TVF. I don't know. It just sounded better, but usually people trip over it. So you did a really good job saying Treasured Vessels Foundation.
Thank you. I learned a while ago to enunciate all my words, even though I'm a Yankee. Yeah. So you know. It's really bad.
That's hard.
It is hard. Yeah. So we're basically telling the viewers and listeners about everything there is to know about Fairview and how cool it is to be in Fairview. Yeah. And what kind of cool people actually live or work or just do things in Fairview. So
where are they?
We're looking for them. No. You have an amazing foundation, which we're going to get to. But just tell us your history about, Fairview, being in it, near it, on it, in it.
Yeah. So I was raised in East Texas. You'll hear a little bit of that come out every once in a while.
We'll hold it against you.
So my husband is a builder and a developer, so we build and move a lot. And one of our last moves was to Fairview. And interesting enough, being from the country, the theme here being keeping it country.
Correct.
We built here. Our kids have gone to Pester. They're now homeschooled, strangely enough. But we'll talk about why a little bit later, because we talk about when we sell our home, right?
Yes, we will.
And we've just really loved living here and developing here and making new friends here and building a business here, really.
And so when you say that you have a house that is built and you've moved in, so tell us, you have your kids homeschooled.
Yes.
How hard is that? When in the grand scheme of things, where they're not actually, it's 7:30 in the morning, whatever, they're going off, you don't see them until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now you're actually there all day with them. What kind of curriculum does a homeschool go through? Because I think that's pretty interesting in itself to have your own structured environment.
Structured environment, loose structure.
Loose structure.
I remember just waking up in the morning and then yelling at them, right? Like, get up, brush your teeth, get ready, we're gonna be late, and that's kind of what our mornings used to look like. And then, you kind of like race them off to school but now, and you kind of like live to put them to bed, right? Like you go and pick them back up, you go and you go to their activities, whatever activities they have, you help with their homework, and then you go to sleep and you do it all over again. And, people kept saying to me, like, enjoy them while they're young. And I'm like, what, enjoy what? Like they're at school more than they are at home,
right?
Or activities or whatever. And so when we started this homeschooling piece, I did not know. I started finding out that other friends were homeschooled, cool people that I thought were smart and sociable, and found out that their mom homeschooled them. So I'm like, oh, this is what I do. And then I quickly learned this is not what I do. So they actually are homeschooled online. Liberty University offers that college. They offer an academy.
Okay.
So their teachers are professors. They have a complete schedule online. They do everything online. I do not come up with a curriculum. I don't grade their papers.
So you didn't have to go to school to get a teaching certificate to homeschool?
No. Nope.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, there you go. If you want to homeschool your kids.
Well, and it just really fits with our lifestyle because we're international missionaries.
Right.
We move a lot. So sometimes when we're not in this home and we move and here and then we're switching them around schools and then eventually we want to completely disengage from all land.
Right.
And so when we do that, just homeschooling is just fits our lifestyle.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And before we get into your passion, we never usually have pre-meeting interviews, but we did talk about something that to me is fantastic, and I think it should be everybody's dream. You said you're only going to be in this house that you're building for a couple of years.
Yes, capital gains taxes.
And then what are you going to do?
And then we want to sell everything that we own on land, buy a catamaran, and go sailing around the world for a minimum of 1 year.
Do you want to adopt a 49-year-old child? Because I would absolutely love to do that.
You know, I'm super excited about it. We follow some families on YouTube, and we have for a couple of years, and just learning about what that would look like. Our kids are a little nervous because, you know, my 5-year-old is like, oh, what if there's a tornado? I'm like, well, there aren't going to be any tornadoes. There may be the other one.
Right.
But, you know, and but then just visiting countries and learning how to sail. Scuba dive, all those kind of neat things, and just learning about the water and just checking out for a year.
And are you going to keep any type of, the electronics of today with you to capture a lot of this stuff?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
My son wants to capture everything underwater. My daughter wants to capture everything above water.
Oh, perfect.
So we've got the equipment already. They practice with it, and we go on sailing trips every now and then, and so they'll practice with their GoPro. And
so we expect a YouTube channel in the future?
Absolutely. They're
All
already
right.
thinking about what the name should be. And
Fantastic.
So,
it should be a good one.
It should be a good one. We don't know. Homeschooling, traveling, Texas, born and raised family.
Wow.
That should be interesting.
People that don't really live near the water spending
right.
a year on the water.
Yes.
That's amazing in
Learning
itself.
all the things.
Well, I do want to touch base on, and not really touch base, but I want this to kind of be a cornerstone of this podcast, is your passion and the foundation that you created.
Yeah.
Because in this day and age, with the sex trafficking that's going on, you can turn on the news and you're going to hear something about it, whether it's a high profile like might happen with somebody that was attached to the NFL, and just it could be just a random person down the road. It touches a lot of people. So tell us a little bit about Treasured Vessels and what that entails.
So my husband and I were trying to think of a timeline. My husband was at a men's breakfast, and they had these speakers come once a week on a Wednesday morning, and the speaker just happened to come and talk about human trafficking internationally, which is, you know, things happen over there that don't happen over here, we assume. And
Big assumption.
and so it was all these men, and they kind of leaned in, right? Like, oh, tell us about this thing that we've never heard of. And then he talked about domestically, and of course that happens up north or on the East Coast. It doesn't happen in the South. No. And then he brought it right home. And I mean, he said you could just hear a pin drop. Mm-hmm. It was just, you know, everybody just leaned in. Every man in there was a father, an uncle, a brother. And he brought home the brochure, and he's like, you should learn more about this. And so, of course, I did. It's just a level of interest. But, you know, I'm in the middle of my career, building my family. And then there was a point in my career, and having our third surprise child, and I just really kind of felt this, like, what's my purpose? Like, what was I even born to do? And went on this journey, and had really nothing to do with trafficking, but I woke up on November 7th, 2015, and I clearly heard in my spirit that I was to build an aftercare facility for girls rescued from sex trafficking here locally. And I was like, is that a thing? Like, is that a need? So when we read about the child on the news, or this person on the news, which we always do, we read that the bad people go to jail and the victims go where? And I looked at my husband, and I repeated to him what I heard in my spirit, and he looked at me and he was like, yeah, let's do that. He's a builder. I come from healthcare. And I'm like, okay, well, it's a collaboration of the minds at this point. So let's just start calling people. And I'm like, okay, so when a kid is rescued, particularly just a minor is rescued, where do they go? Do they go back home to this warm and loving family? They're like, well, first away, they're a runaway. And I'm like, okay, is that against the law? Oh, yes, it is. So they go to jail. We book them on that charge, and then we send them back home to the home that they ran away from in the first place.
Which is a vicious cycle.
Yeah, and so we just keep doing this. And I talk to law enforcement, and I have very close friends now in law enforcement that are like, this job is so exhausting because we just keep finding Susie again and again and again, and with no solution and help for Susie. And it's really exhausting for my job to really have no end, positive result at the end of my rescuing efforts. And so we decided to create this foundation where we would provide a safe place for these young people to go. And throughout these 3.5 years, we've learned that this is a lot of, these young ladies have mental health trauma. We have education that they've missed out on. Maybe that's either high school, junior high, or all the way up to college. They've missed out on that, so we've implemented that into part of our program. It's a 12 to 18 month program. We have 2 phases. So the first phase that we're going to open up is 18 to 24-year-olds, because there's a need to serve that population between 18 and 24-year-olds. We have 6 beds, physical places for them to go in North Texas, 18 to 24-year-olds. When it comes to minors, that's our second phase, 9 years old, if you can imagine, 9 years old. 9-year-olds are often trafficked by their mom and dad, some sort of caregiver, and it sounds horrible, but understand that this is generational. This isn't a new thing for the parents, unfortunately. And so helping to break that cycle from that 9 to 17-year-old mark, that's our second phase, because in North Texas, there are 0 places when a minor is rescued for you to take them if going home isn't an option or isn't a safe option at that time. So that's really our goal, is to first meet the mental health needs. Secondly, the life skills. Sometimes it's just learning how to make their bed, celebrating a birthday, sleeping through the night without night terrors, just the simplicity. I mean, you can imagine some say, Jesus and a GED and get them a job and we're good to go. And we've learned with this population specifically, if you can't sleep through the night without having night terrors, you're not going to be very good during the day as a healthy individual in society. So we really have to first and foremost attend to the mental health, individual therapy, group therapy. Sometimes there's substance abuse. A lot of times there's substance abuse that's come along with this. So that's our goal. It's 12 to 18 months so they can come and stay with us. All wraparound services, legal services, medical, dental.
And where is this located?
It is undisclosed, but I say that because we do want to have volunteers come and be a part of the community of their healing. We want the girls to see that their community is rallying them on. We're going to have projects at the house, and so it's undisclosed, but we will share on a needs-to-know basis.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of what I wanted to make sure people understood, that we don't want what brought them there to begin to have them find them there.
Yeah.
Because that's the big thing.
Yeah.
I want to say something just in my area, is that back in 2015, kind of funny that you came up with that year, I went through leadership Allen Fairview.
Oh, yeah.
And at Region Day, it's funny, we have 7 different leadership groups that sit there, and I always like to say we're solving the world's problems, sitting all together, intermingling and stuff. And they were talking about water conservation, population growth. And then we had a lady come and talk about sex trafficking.
Wow.
And it was an eye-opener because, I mean, she had a whole PowerPoint and a slide about the whole Highway 75 corridor. This is the largest area in Texas for sex trafficking. And after she got done, and you could tell, and I think she also teaches at SMU. She's a professor at SMU.
Okay.
And afterwards, and it was kind of like, a lull in the action, and I brought her over for a second. I said, I have to ask you a question. And I said, were you a victim? And she goes, absolutely.
Wow.
And so you could tell by the way that she was impassioned about the topic.
Sure.
And you look around the room and you don't know how certain things affect certain people.
Sure.
Whether they have that in their past or in the present, or they just have no connection. But there are just a lot of deer in the headlights looks when she was kind of talking.
Yeah.
Because people didn't realize in this area of Texas, Collin County, which is arguably one of the more affluent areas in this place, that this is going on. And it was kind of a big eye-opening experience. Then I got a chance to meet you years ago at Heritage Ranch. We let you have a booth there so that you can get the word out and hopefully fundraise and let people know exactly what's going on. And, it's just a small portion of what somebody could do in this area, which I appreciate what you're doing. And it kind of tied all back into what Fairview's about. Is in the town of Fairview, you're going to meet people from all different walks of life. There's such a wealth of knowledge out here and experience. And this is another thing. You name me 5 people that you're going to walk down the street and they're going to know exactly what Treasured Vessels is, and they probably don't know because it's not an advertisement. You're not saying, here we are.
Right.
But if we can just get that word out and let people know, hey, look around. If you see something that's not right, maybe ask about it.
Yep.
If you get more eyes on the situation, hopefully, we can start pulling these kids out from the situations that they're in. So I just wanted to kind of put that in as far as my background. Usually the interview is about you, but I do have a little bit of back experience, of talking to somebody about it, and it really is. It's eye-opening. I guess that's the only way to say it, and you don't realize it's in your own backyard.
And I think the challenge is when we talk about it, we have to talk about, we did a study at University of Texas, and the governor's office did a study where they identified 79,000 minors and youth that are victims of sex trafficking, not labor trafficking, which is also under the umbrella of human trafficking, but sex trafficking alone. In Texas, there were 79,000, and we believe that number is low. And then a study was done in 2000, that was 2017. A study was done in 2011 that 400 underage girls were being sold for sex every single night in Dallas.
That's just amazing.
So, but we really have to wrap our brain around that if there is a supply, there is a demand, and that we, on average, we know that the average buyer, which we call a John, is 30 to 45-year-old white, middle-class male. And I'm looking at my husband because I'm like, oh, wow. Like
that's you.
And even living in an affluent area,
right.
Just being mindful that if there is a supply, there is a demand, and we have to, and you start peeling back that onion, and it's a hard subject. We have to talk about abuse, survivors, like the young lady that you met,
mm-hmm.
History, family history. I mean, it's a hard, it's just a dark topic, and especially
and
knowing that
it's totally
not.
It goes all across all different walks of life. Like
Absolutely.
You turn on the TV and it's like he was a coach at this high school.
That's
this
right.
was a doctor. This was.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference who you are.
That's right.
That spectrum, that 30 to 45 area. I'm not saying it can be between 30
Sure.
and 45. There's obviously, but the majority of it, you could walk down the street and walk by 5 of them, you won't even know.
That's right. That's right. And I think we just have to start having open, really frank conversations with each other, but also having these frank conversations with our kids, that if somebody really wants to build a relationship with you and that wants to potentially hurt you, they can do that very easily through social media. And I found out my 12-year-old daughter had some friends that she didn't know on a game, that they didn't know where she lived. They couldn't talk to her really, but I just cut that off really quickly because it was like, but Mom, this is a nice person. We play this game together. And it just seems so innocent.
Right.
And just to understand that these predators are not ignorant.
No.
They have been doing this for a very long time, and just to be mindful of that. And then when something may or may not happen, we need to be able to have those open conversations to get those that we love the help that they need.
Absolutely true. So I want to ask one more question.
Sure.
If people would like to contribute to your foundation,
yes.
How could they do that?
We have a website, treasuredvesselsfoundation.org.
Okay.
They can donate there. We're in desperate need of monthly donors, but even better, we are opening our doors January 1. So with opening our doors, that means we have a home that needs to be filled with everything from top to bottom. If you could imagine, a young lady would need between the ages of 18 and 24.
Absolutely.
Sheets and comforters and washcloths and feminine hygiene and cleaning products and everything that you could imagine, food. So we do have an Amazon wish list as well.
Perfect. All right, thank you very much.
Yes.
It's great learning about the foundation. And I want to also thank Larney's at Fairview for allowing us to podcast here in the back room of their area. And I just want to say, with getting neighborly in the town of Fairview, this is a great place to meet your neighbors and to come up and to just sit around and talk about things. This is an eye-opening experience. This isn't something that's going to be on the tip of everybody's tongue every day. But personally, editorial note, if we touch one person because of this podcast that is going to look into this because of this, then I think we did a great thing. And I just want to thank you guys for listening to this and watching this, and just be mindful around you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Getting Neighborly in Fairview, Texas. If you're a business owner interested in calling Fairview home, contact our office by email at edc@fairviewtexas.org or visit us on the web at fairviewtexasedc.com. And if you're a resident and you know someone we should hear from, nominate them at fairviewtexasedc.com/neighbors.